Preview.
So with that, I'm going to start off with really probably the main reason many people in this audience are here. Why do you think a family-owned business should consider selling to a PE firm? And I've got Sean in my top quadrant here, so I'll let him kick that off.
Yeah, I think the easiest way that I've thought about this, having come across a multitude of different opportunities in the past 3 years that I've been kind of sitting in this seat, is it really folds down to one of three scenarios that you may find yourself at. The first I would kind of refer to as kind of as a growth planning situation or scenario, to where you have kind of achieved some degree of scale and size and scope that perhaps kind of eclipses what your core competencies or resident expertise may be, and you need to call upon outside support in order to kind of like break through that glass ceiling that you may be feeling. There's this good adage by Hiroshi Makana, who is the founder of Rakuten, and he coined this phrase that the law of 3 and 10, to where things typically break when you grow by factors of 3 and 10 personnel. So from 3 to 10, 10 to 30, 30 to 100, etc. And I think that the same thing proves true at certain fault lines in a company's size, top line usually being maybe 5 million, 10 million, 25 million, 50 million, etc. And oftentimes there are situations to where you don't necessarily know how to tackle those next steps, how to cross that chasm, and calling upon outside support in the form of a seasoned and experienced private equity firm can help you bridge that divide and get across to the other side. So that's what I would kind of refer to as that kind of growth ambition minded scenario. Another one, and because we really prioritize and frankly idealize management continuity, is a situation to where you have been thoughtful, clairvoyant around transition and succession, and intentional around curating and building a second tier of management that is capable of inheriting the reins of control from you as the next phase and the next step in the company's evolution. But perhaps those select personnel don't necessarily have the requisite resources to go and purchase the company outright from you, at which time it's a good idea to perhaps call upon outside support to facilitate the grease on the wheels of that transaction and facilitate that handoff. We really kind of gravitate towards those situations because we know that there's going to be, again, continuity management to where folks know how that business operates, what is the kind of lifeblood of how it runs, and they're going to kind of remain in place, and we can empower and enable them to go and accomplish what they themselves have in terms of their growth ambitions. The third scenario that I could imagine a owner wanting to contemplate a sale to private equity is one, frankly, in which you're looking for some sort of absolution. You've reached the end of your road, you're tired, overtaxed, overburdened, haven't necessarily perhaps thought too intentionally around transition or succession, but you need somebody to come more or less absolve you from this growing burden that you feel, at which point it can be a viable pathway for you to get a fair market price for somebody to come in and basically consolidate the gains that you've achieved, build upon the foundation that you have laid, and grow the business to its next step and trajectory. So those are the three typical scenarios that I kind of encounter and run into when looking for, at seller motives. And I'd love to kind of hear from my other panelists as they've kind of come into contact with something similar or different.
Yeah, John Huhn, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Sean's got the buckets pretty right there. I would throw them in a couple buckets, like a family transition. You've built a business and there needs to be some capital to help through a transition. Or perhaps it's time to retire. And as people have heard, different firms will have different comfort with different types of scenarios. But for us, what we're looking for is that bucket that Sean mentioned, where they want to get this business to the next level. They say, hey, I've grown this thing. I believe in it. I want to stay in, but I need to take some chips off the table, maybe secure my family's financial future. But I want to grow it to that next level. And when we talk to individuals around that, oftentimes we talk about taking the handcuffs off. And, people will say, well, that sounds odd. But if you think about it, privately owned businesses can have any number of handcuffs. One might be capital. We had a business that we partnered with recently that the gentleman said, look, the work that I do now requires me to personally sign larger and larger lines of credit or loans. And when it went from $1 to $2 to $5 million, I don't know that I want to keep doing that. So capital might be a handcuff. Some people say, hey, I know this business has more room to grow, but I just don't have the time and commitment to spend 80 hours a week anymore. I've got kids or grandkids and I want to spend a little bit of time, but I'm still wanting to be involved in this business. Maybe it's a willingness to spend on CapEx or a comfort expanding the team to get a professional team in there. All those things are potential handcuffs that if an outside partner can come in, they can take those handcuffs off, be a thought partner with them and be able to build and grow that business to the next level. And if we can help do that in a true partnership, in a collaborative way, that's where we find the best partnerships and truly unleash the potential of the business.